Thanks for being here this morning. It's the Mike Broomhead Show. Now, we've been kind of breaking down this speech for the last 40 minutes or so, and some of the things that have kind of upset me that are in the speech, nothing more so than the president picking a date for withdrawal. Now, Senator John McCain is joining us on the line this morning. I've got a couple of questions for the senator, but let me make sure. Senator, are you there?
I'm there, Mike.
Thanks for calling. It's always good to talk with you.
Thank you. This is an interesting time.
I heard some comments that you made in the last day or so regarding the date for withdrawal, in which you said you can't have it both ways. Can you tell us that comment or make that comment again, that you were saying that they can't have it both ways?
Well, on the one side, we are committed to succeeding in Iraq and do what is necessary, in the president's words, in order to prevent a return of al-Qaeda and Afghanistan to become a base for attacks against the United States, and yet an arbitrary date is set for withdrawal. In other words, if you say you're only going to be there for a certain period of time, no matter what, then you send a signal to your enemies as well as your friends that your commitment is not there to see this thing through. And it encourages our enemies and it unsettles our friends, and already reports from Pakistan, Afghanistan, the region are that they're thinking, what's going on? Does this mean that after 18 months, after we've been there for 8 years, after 18 months we're going to pull out? It's the only exit strategy that succeeds is success. In Iraq, we made the commitment and the surge and set up benchmarks. They met those benchmarks, trained and equipped and worked with the Iraqi military, and then we were able to announce dates for withdrawal because we had succeeded. We didn't announce those dates for withdrawal until we had succeeded. You see my point?
Absolutely, and that's. I just wanted you to clarify the statement, because all of it, as I heard the president make these statements, I thought the same thing. Now, two things came to mind, and I know I'm paraphrasing, but Osama bin Laden said early on in the wars that they were going to be the strong horse and we were going to be the weak horse, that they were going to be there for the test of time, that if they could withstand the onslaught from the Americans, that over time we would not be able to endure the cost or the blood loss, and we would weaken and go away. And when I heard the president say this, that reminded me of those statements by Osama bin Laden, and it scared the heck out of me to hear him say those things.
Well, in the hearing yesterday, I admire Secretary Gates as much as any man I've ever encountered. He's tremendous, but I couldn't nail him down, and it's unfortunate because I am sure that he knows better, but had to agree to this. I don't. Let me put it a different way. I think that it's pretty clear that our military leaders and our Secretary of Defense are uneasy with this, according to published reports. Rather than say he knows better, let me just say that they're very uneasy with this because they know what it takes to win, and that means a sustained commitment. And for those who are listening or saying, oh, McCain wants to be there forever, no, I want it to be like Iraq, okay? I want us to do what's necessary to get control, allow the process to move forward, train up the Afghan army as we did the Iraqi army, and then we leave. And even if we stay for a little while after that, we've had troops in Japan for 60 years. We've had troops in Germany. We've had troops in Bosnia. We have troops in Kosovo. We have folks, our troops all over the world, but they aren't in harm's way. You see what I mean?
Right.
So it's frustrating when, I don't know if you remember during the campaign, at a town hall meeting, the guy said to me, how long are we going to be in Iraq? And I said, well, we could be there for 100 years, but the point is we got to win. McCain wants to be in Iraq for 100 years. Well, we've been in Japan for 60 years. We've been in Germany for 60 years. Do you see any uprising of the American people because of that? But I stray from the subject. Here's the point, Mike. The point is you've got to have a firm commitment that you're going to do what's necessary and then leave. And we've got a model for that in Iraq. And when you set dates for withdrawal, the enemy will wait you out.
Well, and it's interesting. I've met a young man named Stephen here that's an Iraqi, living here in the country now, going to school, and he was there for the first Gulf War for Desert Storm, and he said that when he was a young boy, when the Americans left, that Saddam Hussein unleashed his armies on the towns and the people that were cooperating with the Americans. So
they committed virtual genocide.
And so he said this time around it took a long time for the Iraqis, who were happy to see the American. He said him and his friends, because he's an Assyrian, him and his friends had American flags in their bedrooms, but they were leery of helping the Americans because they were afraid we were going to leave again. But once the Americans were committed to staying, when General Petraeus initiated the surge and they won over the hearts and minds that the Americans were going to be there, that's when they began to trust. And I'm sure you knew all this was all part of the trust. My point is, if we don't instill the same trust in the people of Afghanistan, they are never going to aid our soldiers and the NATO troops in getting rid of these people.
If you live in the neighborhood and you have to stay in the neighborhood when the Americans leave, then obviously you are going to accommodate to the neighborhood. And they also got the recent history of after we drove they drove with our enormous assistance the Russians out of Afghanistan. We left. We completely abandoned Afghanistan. So they have a recent example of that, and so therefore a certain credibility gap. Look, I'm very worried about this. I'm glad that we're going to have additional troops. I'm glad we have General McChrystal there, great leadership and a great soldier, but I think it's going to be much tougher now that this, quote, date certain is there, and it's there for obvious reasons in order that the liberal left will be less restless than they are about the whole commitment.
And I have a question about paying for this, because the president brought out the economics of the war. He talked about how much the wars have cost us so far, what he's expecting it to cost, the $30 billion next year. We know that Arizona's own Raul Grijalva has said he is in favor of a war tax. And I've said that I thought that we were going to start hearing about them wanting now to raise some kind of tax in order to pay for the war. Are you hearing things like that? Are they going to start doing this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I would love to go through the budget and find $30 billion. If we just froze our spending at this year's level, at last year's level, I could get you $60 billion immediately. I can get you billions and billions of earmarked pork barrel projects. I'd love to do it. Let me loose on it.
Right.
I mean, to think that we can't reduce this. While Americans' cost economy is going down, Congress is spending more by 8, 10, 12, 15% more than we did last year. None of it, of course, paid for. 43 cents out of every dollar we're spending today in Washington is borrowed money.
Wow. Well, and it's just I'm hearing these grumblings about raising, and I thought they were going to use it as a political ploy to put people like yourself who want to get the wars taken care of, but they are now want to talk about raising taxes to pay for it and try to put you back. Yeah.
Listen, guys, come on, let's go through these appropriations bills. Let's take out these pork barrel earmarks, these hundreds of bridges to nowhere. The corruption goes on here. Please take that on. And the fact is that we're still spending money like drunken sailors around here, although that's an insult to sailors. But the point is that it's outrageous, and all they want to do is raise taxes. And finally, in these harsh economic times, we want to raise people's taxes. My God, we should be cutting people's taxes. We should be cutting the payroll tax. We should be cutting the corporate tax. So because small businesses are stagnant, and that's the engine of our economy. They're having a jobs thing today. By the way, did you see that 8% of the president's cabinet has any private sector experience?
8%? I didn't see that.
History.
Wow. Well, that's again, you've said it, I've said it, we've all said it. Elections have consequences. When you have
there you go.
When you elect a community organizer, you get community organizers in his cabinet. So, let me ask you one thing about healthcare very quickly about this, because now we're hearing the grumblings now about paying for this, the abortion debate. We keep hearing from the Democrats, the abortion debate's settled. Abortion's not being paid for in this bill. And now we're hearing all of these women's health groups are coming out, all these pro-choice groups are coming out saying, don't put that language in there. Is this put to bed on abortion, or is it not put to bed on abortion?
Oh, it certainly does not. Certainly not what's in the Senate. In the House bill, the Stupak amendment does, but certainly not in the Senate bill. By the way, in case you missed USA Today, there's on their editorial, GOP revives scare grandma tactics to kill health bill, and I have a response that says don't slash Medicare.
Yeah.
They're trying to cut $500 billion, $500 billion to create a new federal government-run health care entitlement, and they call it health care reform. It's crazy. Look, we're fighting this. We've got them on the run on these Medicare cuts. There's 330,000 Arizonans that are on Medicare Advantage, and these will be slashed. They will be slashed by as much as a half to two-thirds, and people. And when the president said, if you like your health insurance that you have, you can keep it, not people that have Medicare or the Medicare Advantage program. Look, this is a huge fight. We're winning it, and they're getting angry. And AARP, to their everlasting disgrace, is opposing our efforts to not cut Medicare for senior citizens who have earned the benefits. And if you're listening, you're a member of AARP, cut your membership card in half, put it in an envelope, and send it back to AARP. They're just another arm of the liberal Democrat wing that wants to have government takeover of health care. And help themselves, by the way.
Yeah, and that was the thing, and because the help for AARP is the big thing that was in this. I have one last question. See if you have a comment on this. Chris Matthews said that the president's speech, he went into enemy territory by going to. He's the commander-in-chief of the military, and Chris Matthews says he went into enemy territory at West Point to give the speech. Any comment on the crazy comment by Wallace?
You know,
Matthews.
Matthews. Look, you just kind of have to ignore that kind of craziness. To say that the young men and women, cadets at West Point, are somehow enemy territory. Those that he's really that are gonna be, many of them are gonna be in combat a lot sooner than later. I mean, it just shows the disconnect between this liberal left elite and the American people and the young men and women who are serving. It's been there for a long time. It's worse now.
All right, well, Senator, always it's great to speak with you.
I just mention one thing real quick.
Absolutely, please do.
Miranda, I sent you
yes, you did. I got the letter.
Copy of the Judge Advocate Generals of the military. The Detainee Treatment Act has nothing to do with Miranda rights, nothing whatsoever, and that's signed by our military lawyers. So whoever was floating that around, they're wrong.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've got the letter. I will mention this a little bit later on. We just didn't have time this morning, but I appreciate you sending me the letter.
So much going on, my friend.
It sure is.
Listeners, weigh in. This is a crucial time on healthcare and on Afghanistan.
Well, Senator, always good to talk with you, and we will talk again soon.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
That's Senator John McCain calling us.